The impossible odds commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Terra's Pride, staring out at the endless expanse of space beyond the Kepler 442 system. The stars looked peaceful tonight, but Elena knew better. Her weathered hands gripped the railing as she studied the tactical display, showing the positions of humanity's defensive fleet. 150 ships. That was all they had left after 3 years of running battles across the outer colonies. The communication console suddenly erupted with urgent beeping. Lieutenant Sarah Kim looked up from her station, her face pale with worry. "Commander, we're receiving massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through hyperspace." Elena felt her stomach drop, but her voice remained steady. "How big, Lieutenant?" Sarah's fingers flew across her controls, analyzing the incoming data. "Multiple contacts, ma'am. Thousands of them." Dr. Marcus Chen rushed onto the bridge, still wearing his laboratory coat. The quantum physicist had been working around the clock on new weapons technology, trying to give humanity any possible advantage. "Elena, the gravitational sensors are going crazy down in the lab. What's happening up here?" Before she could answer, the view screen filled with ships. Massive alien vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. They came in waves, each more impressive than the last. Sleek destroyers, massive battleships, and carrier vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Captain James Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom from his fighter squadron. The man they called Reaper had never lost a dogfight, but even his usually confident tone carried worry. "Command, I'm counting over 15,000 enemy vessels. They're arranging themselves in attack formation." Elena closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. 15,000 against 150. The odds were 100 to 1. Any reasonable military commander would surrender immediately, but Elena Vasquez had never been reasonable. She had grown up in the asteroid mining colonies where people learned to survive against impossible odds every single day. She had fought pirates, corporate security forces, and now aliens. Each time everyone said the fight was hopeless. Each time humanity found a way to win. "All ships battle stations," she commanded. "This is not a drill. We are about to face the largest enemy fleet in human history." A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect but strangely accented English. The main screen showed a tall reptilian figure wearing elaborate golden armor. Forearms extended from his muscular torso and his eyes glowed with an inner light. "I am Supreme Admiral Vorth of the Zephyrian Empire. Your pathetic species has expanded too far into our territory. You will surrender your ships and colonies immediately, or we will destroy every human vessel in this system." Elena stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. We don't surrender and we don't run away. If you want our colonies, you'll have to take them from us." Admiral Vorth's laugh was like grinding metal. Brave words from someone who commands only 150 primitive vessels. "We have conquered 47 star systems with our fleet. Your resistance will last perhaps 20 minutes. The alien admiral gestured with one of his forearms, and the communication ended. Immediately, the Zephyrian fleet began moving forward in perfect formation. Their ships moved with mechanical precision, each vessel maintaining exact distance and speed. Elena studied their approach pattern, looking for any weakness she could exploit. "Sarah, start recording all enemy communications. I want to know how they coordinate their attacks." Dr. Chen was already working at a spare console, his fingers flying across the quantum analysis programs. "Elena, I'm detecting something interesting about their formation. They're using some kind of quantum entanglement communication system to coordinate their movements. Every ship is linked to every other ship through quantum particles." Elena's eyes lit up with possibilities. "Can we disrupt that communication?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Theoretically, yes, but we'd need to create a massive quantum interference field. The power requirements would be enormous." Lieutenant Kim suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. "Commander, I've been monitoring their communications and I think I found something. Their language has mathematical patterns. I think I can partially decode their tactical discussions." She worked frantically for several minutes, translating fragments of alien chatter. "They're discussing battle formations from their previous conquests. It looks like they use the same tactics for every fight." Elena felt the first spark of hope she'd had all day. "What kind of tactics?" Sarah pulled up holographic displays showing ship movements. "They advance in waves, using their larger ships to draw fire while smaller vessels attack from the sides. They've used this exact pattern 47 times, and it's worked every time." Elena studied the display carefully, So they're predictable. What else? Sarah continued translating. They expect us to form defensive lines and try to match their firepower. Their entire strategy assumes we'll fight like every other species they've encountered. Captain Morrison's voice came over the intercom again. Command, enemy fighters are launching. I count over 3,000 small craft heading our way. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had followed her through 3 years of desperate battles. They trusted her to find a way to win, even when winning seemed impossible. Marcus, how long until you can have a working quantum disruptor? The scientist checked his calculations. 6 hours minimum. But Elena, even if it works, we'd need to get extremely close to their command ship to deploy it effectively. Elena smiled grimly. Then we better make sure we survive the next 6 hours. Sarah, contact all ships. We're not fighting this battle the way they expect. She opened fleet-wide communications. All vessels, this is Commander Vasquez. We are outnumbered 100 to 1, but we have advantages they don't understand. Her voice carried across the fleet, reaching every human ship in the system. They expect us to form battle lines and trade shots until the bigger fleet wins. They've conquered 47 civilizations using the same predictable tactics, but they've never fought humans before. They don't understand what happens when you back us into a corner. Elena's voice grew stronger with each word. We're not going to fight like other species. We're going to fight like humans. The first wave of Zephyrian fighters reached the outer edge of the human formation. Instead of the neat defensive lines they expected, the human ships scattered in all directions. Small groups of vessels worked together, using asteroids and debris for cover. They struck quickly at isolated alien fighters, then disappeared before the enemy could respond effectively. Captain Morrison led his squadron in a daring attack run against a group of enemy bombers. His fighters moved in seemingly random patterns, making them almost impossible to target accurately. Dr. Chen worked desperately in his laboratory, surrounded by quantum field generators and exotic matter containment units. The quantum disruptor was the most advanced weapon humanity had ever attempted to build. If it worked, it could disable the aliens' quantum communication system, breaking their perfect coordination. If it failed, the Terra's pride would be destroyed and humanity's last hope would die with it. Admiral Vorth watched the battle unfold from his command ship, the Eternal Dominion. The humans were not fighting as expected. Instead of orderly formations, they moved in chaotic patterns that made no tactical sense. Yet somehow they were holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Analysis, he commanded his tactical officers. One of his subordinates, a four-armed creature similar to Vorth but smaller, studied the combat displays. Supreme Admiral, the humans appear to be using guerrilla tactics. They strike quickly, then retreat before we can bring our superior firepower to bear. Vorth's glowing eyes narrowed. Primitive. Increase the attack intensity. Send the second wave. 2,000 more Zephyrian fighters launched from their carrier vessels, adding to the chaos already filling the space around Kepler 442. But instead of being overwhelmed, the human defenders seemed to adapt. They formed smaller groups covering each other's retreats and setting up ambushes among the asteroid fields. Elena watched the tactical display, making constant adjustments to her fleet's positions. Every human ship captain had grown up fighting against odds, whether against pirates, corporate mercenaries, or natural disasters. They knew how to think creatively, how to use their environment, and how to never give up. These skills were serving them well against an enemy that had grown comfortable with easy victories. Sarah, what are you hearing from their communications? Elena asked. Lieutenant Kim looked worried. They're starting to sound frustrated, Commander. I keep hearing references to unpredictable movement patterns and non-standard tactical responses. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Good. Confused enemies make mistakes. As the battle raged on, Dr. Chen made breakthrough after breakthrough in his laboratory. The quantum disruptor was taking shape, but it would require enormous amounts of power to function. Elena, he called over the intercom. I need to reroute power from the main engines to charge the quantum field generators. We'll be sitting ducks for at least 10 minutes. Elena looked at the battle raging outside. 10 minutes was a lifetime in space combat. But if Marcus's device worked, it could change everything. Do it, she ordered. All ships, form defensive positions around Terra's pride. We're about to try something that's either brilliant or completely insane. The human fleet moved with practiced precision. forming a protective shell around their flagship. Fighters weaved between larger vessels, creating overlapping fields of fire. Captain Morrison pushed his squadron to the limit, drawing enemy attacks away from the Terra's pride. The Zephyrian fleet pressed their advantage, sensing weakness in the human formation. Admiral Vorth ordered a full assault, committing his reserves to what he believed would be the final push. As alien weapons fire lit up the darkness of space, Dr. Chen made final adjustments to his quantum disruptor. The device hummed with barely contained energy, ready to either save humanity or destroy the Terra's pride in a catastrophic explosion. Elena watched the countdown timer, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of the human race. The odds were still 100 to 1 against them, but Elena had learned long ago that odds were just numbers. What mattered was the courage to keep fighting when everyone else said you should give up. When humans fight back, the quantum disruptor reached full power, just as the Zephyrian fleet closed to optimal firing range. Dr. Marcus Chen's hands shook as he made final calibrations to the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever built. The device could either save them all, or create a quantum explosion that would destroy both fleets. "Elena," he called out. "The disruptor is ready, but I need a clear shot at their command ship. We have to get within 2 kilometers of their flagship." Commander Elena Vasquez studied the tactical display, calculating distances and enemy positions. The Eternal Dominion sat in the center of the alien formation, protected by layers of escort vessels. Reaching it would require flying through the heaviest concentration of enemy firepower in the system. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez," she announced. "We're going to do something no sane military officer would ever attempt. We're charging straight into the heart of their fleet." Captain James Morrison's voice crackled through the intercom from his fighter squadron. "Command, you want us to fly directly into 15,000 enemy ships? That's either the bravest or stupidest plan I've ever heard." Elena smiled grimly. "Maybe both, Reaper. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Your job is to clear us a path to their command ship." Morrison's laugh carried equal parts fear and excitement. "Roger that, Command. If we're going to die today, at least it'll be memorable." The human fleet began its impossible charge toward the center of the Zephyrian formation. Instead of the careful, measured advance that aliens expected, the humans moved with wild, unpredictable patterns. Ships dove and weaved through enemy fire, using destroyed vessels and asteroid debris as cover. The Terra's pride led the way, its armor already scarred from previous battles, but its crew determined to reach their target. Admiral Vorth watched the human advance with growing confusion. In 47 previous conquests, no species had ever attempted such a suicidal attack. "They're heading straight for our command ship," his tactical officer reported. "Should we withdraw the Eternal Dominion to a safer position?" Vorth's forearms gestured dismissively. "Unnecessary. Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Let them come. We'll destroy them all at close range." But as the human ships closed distance, strange things began happening to the Zephyrian fleet. Ships that should have been moving in perfect coordination started falling out of formation. Weapon systems that had functioned flawlessly for decades suddenly began missing their targets. The quantum entanglement communication system that linked every alien vessel began experiencing mysterious interference patterns. Dr. Chen monitored the quantum disruptor's effects from his laboratory. "Elena, it's working. The interference field is disrupting their quantum communications. Their ships can't coordinate with each other anymore." Elena watched as the alien formation began to collapse into chaos. Massive battleships collided with their own escort vessels. Fighter squadrons lost contact with their carriers and began attacking random targets. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was monitoring alien communications channels, translating the growing panic in their transmissions. "Commander, they're trying to re-establish communications, but the quantum interference is scrambling their signals. I'm hearing reports of system failures throughout their fleet." Elena pressed their advantage. "All ships focus fire on their command vessel. This is our only chance." The human fleet converged on the Eternal Dominion like wolves attacking a wounded giant. Fighters strafed the massive ship's weapons platforms while larger vessels hammered its shields with concentrated fire. The alien flagship, designed to coordinate a massive fleet, found itself isolated and unable to call for effective support. Captain Morrison led a daring attack run directly at the command ship's bridge. His fighter squadron weaved through defensive fire, each pilot pushing their craft to the limit. "This is for every human colony you've destroyed." Morrison growled as he lined up his shot. His photon torpedoes struck the Eternal Dominion's command section, sending explosions cascading across the alien vessel's hull. Admiral Vorth felt his flagship shudder under the human assault. For the first time in his military career, he experienced something he had never felt before: doubt. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered. They showed no fear of death, no willingness to surrender when faced with superior odds. "Supreme Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we've lost contact with 60% of our fleet. The quantum interference is preventing effective coordination." Vorth stared at the tactical displays showing his once perfect formation dissolving into chaos. Ships that had conquered star systems were now bumping into each other like blind creatures in the dark. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." Dr. Chen's voice came over Elena's intercom, barely audible over the sound of weapons fire and explosions. "Elena, the quantum disruptor is overloading. We've got maybe 10 minutes before it either burns out or explodes." Elena made a command decision that would either end the battle or end humanity. "All power to weapons. Concentrate everything we have on their command ship." The Terra's Pride unleashed every weapon in its arsenal at the Eternal Dominion. Railguns, plasma cannons, photon torpedoes, and experimental energy weapons all fired simultaneously. The combined firepower of the human flagship, supported by the concentrated assault of the entire fleet, overwhelmed the alien vessel's defensive systems. Explosions bloomed across the Eternal Dominion's hull as its shields finally collapsed. Admiral Vorth found himself on the bridge of a dying ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. Emergency lights flickered as systems failed throughout the vessel. His tactical officers lay dead at their stations, killed by falling debris and electrical fires. For the first time, the Supreme Admiral of the Zephyrian Empire understood what it meant to lose a battle. But what shocked him most was not the defeat itself, but how it had happened. The humans had been outnumbered 100 to 1, using primitive technology against the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. By every logical calculation, they should have been destroyed within minutes. Instead, they had turned their apparent weaknesses into strengths, using unpredictability and desperation as weapons more effective than any technology. Elena watched the alien command ship drift powerless through space, its engines dead and its weapons silent. Around them, the Zephyrian fleet was in complete disarray. Without their quantum communication system, the individual ships couldn't coordinate their attacks or even navigate effectively. Many had already begun retreating to hyperspace, abandoning their fellows in their haste to escape the chaos. "Commander," Sarah Kim called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien flagship. It's Admiral Vorth, and he's requesting to speak with you directly." Elena straightened her uniform and prepared to face the enemy commander who had threatened to destroy every human in the system. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Vorth's battle-scarred face. His golden armor was cracked and smoke drifted behind him from damaged systems. "Commander Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying a respect that hadn't been there before. "In 3 centuries of warfare, I have never encountered a species like yours. You were outnumbered 100 to 1. Using primitive weapons against advanced technology, facing certain death. Any rational species would have surrendered." Elena met his gaze steadily. "Humans don't surrender when we're protecting our homes and families. We fight until we win or until there's no one left to fight." Admiral Vorth was quiet for a long moment, studying the human commander who had defeated his mighty fleet. When he spoke again, his words would become legend throughout the galaxy. "I understand now why the other species whisper stories about humans. You don't fight wars to conquer or to prove your superiority. You fight because you refuse to give up, no matter how impossible the odds become." The alien admiral looked directly into Elena's eyes as he delivered his final message. "I am transmitting a warning to all Zephyrian commanders throughout the Empire. It will tell them what I have learned today." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Even 100 to 1 odds mean nothing when facing humans. They don't just fight to win, they fight to survive. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Admiral Vorth's transmission continued, broadcasting across Zephyrian space. "We attacked them because we believed they were weak. We saw their small numbers and primitive technology as signs of an easy victory. We were wrong. Humans are not dangerous because of their weapons or their ships. They are dangerous because they never stop fighting, never stop adapting, and never accept defeat." The alien admiral's final words echoed across the galaxy, carried by quantum communications to every corner of Zephyrian space. I have conquered 47 star systems, but I could not conquer the human spirit. Let this be a warning to all who would threaten humanity. When you attack humans, you don't just fight their ships or their weapons. You fight their determination to protect everything they love, and that determination will destroy you. As the Eternal Dominion systems finally failed completely, Admiral Vorth made one last transmission to his surviving fleet. All Zephyrian vessels withdraw from human space immediately. We will not attack this species again. Elena watched the alien fleet retreat, their perfect formations replaced by the chaotic rush of ships fleeing a battle they had expected to win easily. Dr. Chen's quantum disruptor finally overloaded and shut down. Having served its purpose perfectly, Captain Morrison and his fighter squadron returned to their carriers, their impossible mission accomplished. Lieutenant Kim coordinated rescue operations for damaged human vessels, her translations having provided crucial intelligence for their victory. Elena stood on the bridge of the Terra's Pride, looking out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Around her, the human fleet began rescue operations and damage control, already preparing for whatever challenge would come next. The odds had been 100 to 1 against them, but they had won because they were human and humans never gave up. The Battle of Kepler 442 became legend throughout the galaxy. Other species learned that humans were not to be underestimated, not because of their technology or their numbers, but because of something far more dangerous: their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Vorth's final transmission became known as the Human Warning, a message that saved countless lives by preventing other species from making the same mistake the Zephyrians had made. Elena Vasquez returned to Earth as a hero, but she never forgot the lesson of that day. When someone asks you to surrender because the odds are impossible, when they tell you that fighting is hopeless and defeat is certain, remember the day when 150 human ships destroyed a fleet of 15,000 alien warships. Remember that humans don't fight because the odds are good. They fight because some things are worth fighting for, no matter what the odds might be.